It's not about the indictments. It's about these prosecutors working the election clock. They waited 30 months for a reason. Fani Willis, what did they promise you in exchange for all of this? Did they promise you a seat on the Georgia Supreme Court? Did they promise you the governorship? Go look at Kim Gardner. She was the last one they tried this with. Go look at Kim Gardner. They got what they could out of Kim Gardner. Indictments on Eric, the then governor, Eric Greitens. Indictments on the McCluskey's. Investigation after investigation. Eventually, she ran into a brick wall. That brick wall is called reality. Not only did she have to resign as DA, but she lost her license entirely. And now she's in nursing school. Fani, I ask you, will it be worth it? Will it be worth it? Donald Trump, he urged people to watch One America News. Trump was tweeting while he was watching it. David Schaefer was reserving a room in... Oh my gosh. Mark Meadows. He offered to pay for signature matching and verification. Let me tell you something. The Georgia governorship is controlled by a Republican. Both houses, the state, Senate, and Georgia, all controlled by Republicans. They could stop this right now if they wanted to, but no, they won't. Just like they could have verified those signatures when they had the chance. But they didn't. Mark Meadows wanted signature verification, and they charged him for wanting that. It's not about the enemies at the gate. It's about the traitors in your midst. So I pray for Fani, because this is dangerous, what she's doing. When it comes crashing down all around them, I hope that they find something. I truly do mean this. I hope that they find something to hold on to. I pray for them. That's why I'm wearing my Pray shirt today. That's from Rooted Apparel. I'm in studio. If you want to see me live in the studio, you can see me on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Twitter. The Morning Buzz with Kat Peterson. You can check out Kat Peterson 929 on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. Rooted Apparel. Their website is in the description of the YouTube video. I'm wearing a Pray shirt. They're based here in Bloomington. And when there's all kinds of uncertainty, we can know that Jesus Christ is King. Jesus Christ is King. And you can wear a shirt that says Jesus Christ is King. And that can serve as a conversation piece to start up a quick conversation about the gospel. Believe me, that's what we need right now. Jesus is King. We need prayer for these people. Budweiser. They've been blasted. They're being blasted for their latest desperate attempt to win back customers. So Budweiser, what they're doing is ripping off the pro-American competitor, YUENGLING. I think that's the way you say it. I don't know. I've never had it. So I'm going to be getting into this. And then there's this 80s TV star that I watched a little bit growing up on Full House. And she's getting angry because her movie was sold to a network that promotes family values. So she's very upset. It's called the Great American Family Network, I think it is. And she's upset that her movie got sold to them because, oh no, Great American Family, they promote family values. And she hates that. So she was angry. She issued some sort of apology because her movie got sold to that network. We'll get to that later in Australian, whining about how there's way too many American flags out there. She lives in America. She's an Australian. And she's like, I'm just so upset by all of these American flags in America. Well, I've got 5 whole reasons why she can go just suck it. Okay, get out of here. We don't want you. Miss Australian. We're going to be getting into all of that. Before I get into that, I do want to play a clip from Fani Willis. This is her yesterday. Let's take a listen here.
The grand jury issued arrest warrants for those who are charged. I am giving the defendants the opportunity to voluntarily surrender no later than noon.
no later than noon. I can't get over it. The prosecutor, she tweets out and she publishes these charges before the grand jury had even got their indictments or had even made their recommendation on what the charges should be. They were still hearing testimony. They were soliciting testimony. And then she comes out, publishes charges. She tampered with that jury. And she's out there and she's like, well, the grand jury came up with these charges. No, they didn't. You did. You tampered with the jury. You posted the charges prior to that grand jury finishing up their solicitation of testimony and listening to the testimony. But Hillary Clinton, she's gleeful. She was on MSNBC yesterday with Rachel Maddow. Just take a listen. She can't even control. She can't even stop herself from smiling. She can't contain her joy. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
This. Yeah, this is not the circumstances in which I expected to be talking to you. Nor me, Rachel. It's always good to talk to you, but honestly, I didn't think that it would be under these circumstances. Yet another set of indictments. This is something very fancy meeting you.
These people are sick. Sick. They have no class. They are prosecuting their political opposition. Maddow, she jokingly said that she didn't expect to be talking to Clinton under these circumstances, to which Clinton agreed. Though the former Secretary of State, Clinton, appeared quite joyous in that moment. Why is she so excited? Yeah, so that was them on MSNBC. We're going to get to more Trump indictment things. I am planning on talking with David Shostokis. Hopefully today at some point, David Shostokis is representing a man that goes by the name of Stephen Lee. Stephen Lee is a pastor, and he's a pastor out of Chicago, and he's been indicted alongside Trump. So there's like 18 people that Trump is being indicted with. They're kind of going after Donald Trump and his allies as if they're some sort of mob. And they're charging them with like a conspiracy and all of these different types of charges. I can't believe they're going after this guy, this pastor. Most of the people who are indicted alongside Donald Trump are lawyers or political consultants. Now, this one is an Illinois pastor, and he is being represented by David Shostokis, a good friend of the program, and he is allegedly, he's being charged with apparently going to intimidate Georgia election workers. That's what they're saying this pastor did. And I'll be curious as to what David Shostokis builds. Apparently, there was a Georgia election worker. Her name is Ruby Freeman. And she says that this pastor was knocking on her door and that she was scared and that he was trying to bully her. And she's some sort of like election worker. So we'll have to see what David Shostokis has got cooking for his defense. So we'll get to that here coming up in just a little bit. If you're watching on the stream, be sure to smash the like button, share that out with your normie friends. You can always find the podcast at cities929.com. Let's get into it. Bud Light, Budweiser, they've been blasted now for this desperate attempt to try to win back some customers. They have a new plan, and they are attempting to win their customers back. But this sounds very familiar. And I remember when this happened because it didn't happen that long ago. Their latest ploy is to try to convince people that they're patriotic again. So Bud, they came out with this new camouflage can to try to raise money for a veterans charity. The veterans charity is Folds of Honor. Now, I want to make this clear. There is never a bad time to support the families of our veterans or first responders. That goes double for families who have lost a loved one in the line of duty. Okay. There is never a bad time to support those families or support veterans, period. But for some reason, I can't seem to shake this sense of deja vu that I'm having. Okay. I've got some deja vu going on. And something about this plan with the camouflage cans and the raising money for veterans, it all just sounds very familiar. Well, there it is. After Budweiser's unfortunate real-time experiment on the correlation of getting woke and going broke, because that's what it was. It was an experiment. How woke can we go to get that sweet, sweet ESG money, but still keep our customers? How woke can we get? And it was all an experiment. Um, And now there has been an opportunity that was presented for another brewery to step up as America's beer, and that was, of course, YUENGLIng. I think that's how you say it. I'm probably butchering that. I've never drank the beer, uh, but I probably will now. So after all of that happened, that beer, the oldest American brewery, they stepped up to fill that void of being the American beer. And what they did 3 months ago, YUENGLIng, they announced this new camouflage can. And what it's got a red, white, and blue logo on it, and all of the proceeds benefit a um, veterans charity with these camouflage cans. So the chief administrative officer of this beer company, the oldest brewery in America, um, they dedicated, this is what she said in a statement, they're dedicated to supporting the United States military, and we are seeking ways to further show our appreciation to those who protect this country's freedom. We are grateful to our partner with Team Red, White, and Blue. This, I guess, is an organization that shares the devotion to men and women who have served as our nation's heroes. So that was a statement she released. That was like 3 months ago. Okay, so they came out with the camouflage can and donating to the veterans way before now. Budweiser, um, Budweiser sees their former customers flocking to this anti-woke beer option, and now they're trying to hop on the bandwagon here. And like I said, there is never a bad excuse to help our veterans. The difference is when an American run company does it, it feels more authentic. But when a company run by foreign, uh, global corporate, like foreigners, and this is a global corporation, Anheuser-Busch, when they do it, especially after they exposed who they really are after bringing on Dylan Mulvaney as some sort of ambassador, this this kind of reeks of desperate pandering to me. Okay, you're trying to literally steal the marketing idea from this true American beer, and Americans are seeing right through it. They're seeing right through it. Let's see. If you've been living under a rock, I do want to unpack this for you. The Bud Light controversy, the controversial transgender performer Dylan Mulvaney, who runs around in tiny little leather shorts and sings about the bulge in his pants. He announced that he, she, they, I don't know what he is, was a brand ambassador for Bud Light as part of their March Madness campaign. It was an odd choice because Dylan's portrayal of women, he presented somebody who was ditzy, had no idea what March Madness was, as opposed to, all of the thousands of girls who love college basketball and love sports. They could have chose literally any other woman who enjoys March Madness. Let's not pick a man who pretends to be a girl and further pretends to be a girl that's ditzy and doesn't even know what March Madness is. Number two, something that you need to know about the Bud Light controversy. There was a podcast appearance of the now former, she's been let go, the Bud Light VP. Her name's Alyssa. Her appearance came to light where she actually lashed out at Bud Light customers and said that they were too fratty and that they were out of touch, and that it's important to have another approach. And her approach, of course, included a San Francisco based influencer marketing firm in which Dylan Mulvaney is a part of. And she set up an ambassadorship with Dylan Mulvaney and Bud Light. And look, there's a trend with progressives where the only way they think that they can be inclusive and for everyone is to take a dump on the people who currently enjoy their product. That's how they justify it in their head. They're like, well, we're being inclusive. We're for everyone. But we're going to take a dump on the people that have already enjoyed our product. So no one at any level of AB, Anheuser-Busch, Bud Light, they didn't even think to utter the simple words of, sorry, we messed up. But yeah, I'm sure the camouflage cans in which you stole, this was a marketing idea that you are stealing from a true American beer company. I'm sure the cans are going to work. Go ahead, give it a try. We'll see what happens. I'm sure the cans will work. All right. I do want to take a break. You're listening to the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. Check out me on YouTube at Kat Peterson 929. If you want more content, visit cities929.com. We're going to be back on the other side. Have you guys heard? The Hawaii governor says that the state is looking to acquire the land that was destroyed by the fires. Well, that was fast. It's a little too quick for my comfort there, folks. We're going to be back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Fanny, Fanny, what did they promise you? What did they promise you in exchange for all of this? Did they promise you a seat on the Georgia Supreme Court? Did they promise you the governorship? Take a look at Kim Gardner. Kim was the last one they tried this all with, and they got what they could out of Kim Gardner. She was the last one who did all of this, where she went after people like Eric Greitens, who was the then governor, indictments on the McCluskey's, investigation after investigation. And eventually she ran into a brick wall, and that brick wall is known as reality. And now, not only did she have to resign as a DA, but she lost her license entirely. Uh, and now she's in nursing school. So, Fannie Willis, I ask you, will it be worth it? Will it be worth it? And let me tell you something, Georgia, they've got a Republican governor. They've got Republicans in the state and in the House. And if they really wanted to, they could stop all of this. But they're not going to, because guess what? They didn't even, they could have verified those signatures. Mark Meadows offered to pay for signature verification. Oh my gosh. And he's being indicted for that. He's being charged for that. Mark Meadows wanted signature verification, and they charged him for wanting that. It's not about the enemies out at the gates. No. It's about the traitors in our midst. So I pray for Fanny, because when it all comes crashing down around her, I hope that she's got something to hold on to. I really do. I pray for her. You're listening to the Morning Buzz, and I don't want to waste any more time. I've got a very special guest. He ran for Attorney General here in the state of Illinois, and he's a well-known, very renowned attorney. He's also helped us a lot here in the town of Normal with a lot of lawsuits. And David, sometime we're going to have to catch up, because they're at it again. The town of Normal, they're doing this development. It's called Uptown South, and they're making it to where it has to be all electric. And now they're looking at an ordinance that says, hey, any future developments, that they have to be all electric. And that, of course, I'm sure, being the best attorney around, you still have your DA. Like, you can still practice. Your license to practice wasn't revoked like Kim Gardner's was. So you can still practice, but obviously that's a violation of the Energy Conservation Act. It's a federal law. You can't regulate people's appliances indirectly because, well, Congress said you can't do that. So, David Shostokis, thanks so much for coming on.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Kat. Good morning to you. Good morning to your audience. It's great to be with you guys. I haven't been with you in a while, and this is kind of a big deal. We had the opportunity to be with you and talk about this a little bit. My phone was blowing up yesterday from people all over the country because of what happened in Georgia, and I'm involved in this case. So we go from Normal to Fulton County. Stuff all over that we have to keep an eye on and try and help out. This is amazing. It's sort of like I don't know. It's almost an Alice in Wonderland kind of thing. It's so we're good as bad and up is down, and because we've got a whole set of circumstances where there are people that are trying to investigate and see to it that elections are accurate, election counts are accurate, or that the people conducting elections follow the law. And somehow it's criminal to investigate an election. It's utter nonsense. It's utter insanity.
Yeah, and they're almost treating it. And I woke up this morning, I looked at CNN. You should see what they've got there on CNN. It's like a map, and it's a web, and they're like the people who are being indicted, and then of course the gentleman we're talking about today, Stephen Lee, he's a pastor out of Chicago, right? And you're representing him, and he's being indicted alongside Donald Trump. And they're saying that he was in some sort of connection, or like he was trying to intimidate Georgia election workers. That's what they're charging him with. And I have a hard time believing that, just considering he's a pastor. And not just any old pastor, but he's pretty well known and well liked. Right?
Yeah, Pastor Lee is interesting. Really, really great guy, and I had the opportunity to know him. I might want to start with this, and my original connection to Pastor Lee is the fact that last year the Georgia Special Purpose Grand Jury, which is a unique creature in American law. No other state has such an animal, let's call it, that is able to investigate and yet not able to issue charges. And that's the vehicle that in Georgia they utilize to theoretically build this case that they used to investigate. Pastor Lee was subpoenaed by the Special Purpose Grand Jury, and a subpoena issued by a state entity, actually the authority of the state, it ends at the boundaries of the state. So the state actually doesn't have the authority to make somebody comply unless they get the cooperation of the state, of the residents, of the person that they want. And so they sent a subpoena for Reverend Lee to Kendall County, Illinois, which is where he lives. Mm-hmm. And we had a hearing before a judge in Kendall County. We needn't go into all those details, but the fact is as far as to the best of my knowledge, while the Special Purpose Grand Jury was running around trying to get people from all over the country and forcing them to testify via these subpoenas, that they got cooperation from the local states to bring their people to Georgia. We defeated Fanny and her team in Kendall County. We had that subpoena for Pastor Lee quashed in Kendall County, because not only do you need the cooperation, does the state of Georgia need the cooperation of the state of Illinois to make this happen? They actually have to follow the law of the state of Illinois to make it happen. And they failed to follow the law of the state of Illinois when it comes to bringing Reverend Lee before the Georgia Special Purpose Grand Jury. And I would point this out to everybody, everybody in CNN and everybody else. We already beat them one time.
Well, that's good news. Now I kind of have a breath of, oh, well, that's good news, because they weren't following Illinois law, because he was being charged in Fulton County, but they were supposed to follow Illinois law. I think you've been on before and you kind of explained that.
Yeah, but I think that's important to lead off when you consider this. These folks in Fulton County are not infallible. They don't, and there are places where I don't know. There's a location where the judge actually still respects the law and still will enforce it. And now that, if you keep in mind that what they did in terms of trying to bring Reverend Lee to Georgia for testimony, and their failure to do so. And they failed to do so because what? Because they didn't follow the law. Now, let's take a look at this indictment, if you will. There's what they call 161 overt acts toward this RICO conspiracy. Reverend Lee's supposed crimes consist of knocking on 2 doors and having a telephone call.
Yeah.
I don't know where that becomes illegal. I'm not sure how or where that becomes illegal. They say that Reverend Lee knocked on the door of a neighbor of this Ruby Freeman. Ruby Freeman became somewhat infamous across the country because of the video from the Fulton County Vote Center, where they have a video where all the observers are told to leave the observation area, and Ruby and some other folks participated in. All of a sudden, they're pulling boxes out from underneath tables, and then they're pulling things from the boxes. And running them through the ballot counting machines. And that video was actually pretty viral and pretty well known around the country. And so Ms. Freeman became kind of well known and a household name for. She had the 15 minutes of fame, and they've charged Reverend Lee with a crime for knocking on the door of her neighbor and then knocking on her door, and then having a telephone conversation with some folks about, geez, I wonder if there's some way, shape, or form that, given all these all this pressure that Ms. Freeman's under, whether or not there's some way to provide some assistance to her. Because Reverend Lee is, besides a pastor, he was also, for whatever it's worth, he was the main chaplain to the New York City Police Department during 9/11. And he's got a number of other things besides that. Prior to becoming an ordained minister, he was actually an NCIS special agent.
Wow.
He's got a very, very interesting background, and so he pastors law enforcement, and so he's got a law enforcement background himself personally, having been a special agent. Now he has action here in Illinois. He didn't do anything to intimidate any witnesses. He didn't talk to. He literally even didn't have any conversation with anybody to do that. There's video of him talking to a police officer out while he's parked in his car on a street out near Ruby Freeman's house. None of the things that they're doing makes it illegal, but the damage that these people in Georgia are doing to the American legal system is incredible. They've indicted the president's lawyers for giving legal advice. What?
You can't. There is. I mean, they're doing the same thing in what was it? I think it's the Jan 6 case.
Yes.
Where they're trying to say that, or no, it was the Mar-a-Lago case. I can't even keep it all straight anymore. Where they're saying that he conspired with his attorneys or something like that, and it's like, wait a second, that's all attorney-client privilege. You can't say that that's the case here.
No, they're saying that it's illegal to talk to your lawyer. They're saying that it's illegal to lobby a legislature, right? Because they're saying that it's an overt and criminal act to go and talk to a legislature and present what you believe to be believe your case to the legislature and ask the legislature to act upon it. That's I don't know. To me, that's politics. So they're making it illegal to knock on a door. They're making it illegal to talk to your lawyer. They're making it illegal to talk to a legislator. This it is almost insanity, and that's all wrapped up in Georgia. But as you mentioned, they also are trying to make it illegal in Florida to speak to your lawyer. You know, they're also trying to make it illegal to follow when it comes to Florida, follow the Presidential Records Act. You know, it's you know, this is crazy. We've like I said, they've already lost to us here in Illinois because they actually did bad lawyering. They didn't. There was just bad lawyers on the part of the special purpose grand jury and Ms. Willis and her team, and in fact, Judge McBurney sent a request to the judge here in Illinois, and the judge here in Illinois denied Judge McBurney's request. So I'm going to suggest to you that regardless of what may happen in the trial court here in Fulton County, sooner or later this is going to get to an appellate court, and sooner or later it may very well get to the Supreme Court because it involves federal elections, it involves presidential conduct. They're saying that it's apparently illegal for the president of the United States to talk to the acting attorney general and ask the acting attorney general to take some official action. It's unlawful. They're saying that it's unlawful for the president of the United States to investigate the integrity of an election. It's just this
That's like
whole
his duty. It's like his entire duty, I would imagine, is to make sure our elections have integrity. And one thing I wanted to ask you before
yes.
we take a break was this indictment. So she posted it. Fannie Willis, her office anyway, posted the charges prior to the grand jury hearing all of the testimony and them making a recommendations, because typically how that goes, they make a recommendation, right? And then the DA comes up with the charges based off of the recommendation of the grand jury. But she posted those charges prior to the grand jury even being finished with the testimony. So can that help you in your case? I mean, I feel like that in and of itself, you've tampered with the grand jury at that point, because you said, "Hey, this is what I'm planning on charging him with, and charging all of these people with, prior to you even finishing the testimony." That's like jury tampering, which I would imagine calls for some sort of, "Hey, well, you have to get a new grand jury in there. You have to go about this entirely again, like all again."
There's certainly an argument to be made in that regard that should be, because of course, as you mentioned, the charges were posted up on the website of the clerk's office of Fulton County prior to the grand jury voting at what appears to have been prior to the grand jury taking a vote on them. The process certainly is that the prosecutors present evidence to the grand jury. Then, based upon that evidence, they should draft charges, and then ultimately the grand jury then has the opportunity to vote up or down on whether or not somebody should be charged based on those things. So it appears as though they did post the charges prior to the grand jury voting on the charges. So
Yeah.
this we don't know. Grand jury proceedings originally, at least, are secret, and so we don't have precisely what happened timeline-wise within the court, within the grand jury itself. That will become available to defense counsel as time goes forward, and we will see how that played out in terms of the actual, say, transcripts and the actual record and the actual timing of it. Because you can't post charges prior to the grand jury voting on them as if they were charges, and so this is very, very problematic. At the very least, someone breached the security and the sanctity of the grand jury when that posting took place. And that's not to say it didn't happen otherwise elsewhere. And whenever that happens, that calls into question the validity of the work of the grand jury.
Well, prayers up for the pastor, Stephen Lee. I'm sure you're building a case for him. I mean, in and of itself, your case, I'm sure, is just going to say it's not illegal to knock on doors or give people phone call.
Well, yeah, but strangely enough, for somebody to be involved with and convicted of a RICO case, they have to have been intertwined with everyone else. They have to continue to draw a connection that you did too. And they keep referring within the indictment to overt acts. The law says that what you have to do is commit two criminal acts in furtherance of the enterprise. They keep referring to overt acts and in furtherance of a conspiracy. That's not the language of the RICO statute in Georgia. The language of this RICO statute in Georgia says two criminal acts in furtherance of the enterprise, as opposed to overt acts in furtherance of a conspiracy. These are two different things, and that's really, really important. That's how badly this is drafted. The drafting of the indictment does not comply, at least in my reading at the moment, does not comply with Georgia law for charging a RICO case.
Yeah, and you can't say overt acts. So they're trying to say that the overt acts are, I don't know if they're going to be able to say that they're criminal, but they're trying to get around it because they know that the phone call, that the knocking on the door that Stephen Lee did, that was not criminal, but they have to say something. So they're saying overt acts.
They call them overt acts, but the statute says two criminal acts, within a list of there's a range of about 40 some criminal actions that are listed within the RICO statute, and you have to have committed at least 2 of the 40 some listed criminal actions that are within the RICO statute. And so the language is just really very strange in this indictment, because to my knowledge, to my reading, the language doesn't charge them with acts, and that goes for all 167 incidents that they call overt acts. They don't, they don't say that it was a criminal act in furtherance of an enterprise. They say it was an overt act in furtherance of a conspiracy. And the interesting thing about that as well is that many, or if not most, of Georgia felony crimes have a basic 2-year statute of limitations, and a RICO violation has a 5-year statute of limitations. So they have to shoehorn into RICO things that would normally have already had the statute run, because, of course, we're well over 2 years past November of 2020. And so it's just, there's a whole lot of problems. There's a real belief that this is certainly not going to get to trial in 6 months, as Ms. Freeman indicates, because there's a whole lot of litigation that's going to go on. And you've got certainly at the minimum 19 lawyers she's going to have to deal with. And we all get our we all have our opportunity to make pretrial motions, we all want, when it comes to jury selection, each and every defendant has their 7 to 10 preemptory challenges. So there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 200, close to 200 challenges to the jury selection. I don't know how she hopes to have a trial in 6 months. I don't know how she hopes to have a trial in 2 years. There's a very
well. And here's the thing, I think, David, is that it's not about the indictments. It's about these prosecutors working the election clock, and they waited 30 months to do all of this for a reason. They're working the election clock. They want to tie, Donald Trump up. They want to tie him up with all kinds of trial dates and money for attorneys, and they just want to tie everybody up so that way they can't campaign and focus on the election, because they're afraid he's going to win.
Yeah, no, and there's some belief that they're going to, as you say, try and drain his resources. There's a reason to believe that Mr. Trump's legal bills could get to $100 million. The flip side of that, of course, is he's getting $1 billion of airtime.
Yep. You're doing his own advertising. He doesn't really have to spend much on the campaign for advertising or anything like that. But
they'll be sucking the air out of everything else, and so nobody's going to be able to break through. Nobody else is going to be able to discuss any of the issues. So they're pretty much guaranteeing him the nomination through this process, and we'll see what happens regarding the general election, because we don't really know who the Democrat nominee is going to be. I'm finding it very difficult that the fellow that's living in the White House is going to continue on with that, and I believe he's going to be replaced as the nominee before it's all said and done.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if JB is looking for a run of some kind. He's already laying the groundwork. But David, we've got to go.
Yes.
I thank you so much, guys. I got an exclusive interview with, well, exclusive for now, but I got the first interview with David Shestokas, because he's the best, and he cares a lot about the folks here in Central Illinois and in Illinois. I know that because of his run for Attorney General. But David Shestokas, thanks for joining me, and I wish you luck in defending Stephen Lee.
Thank you so much, Kat. Great to be with you.
All right, folks, we're going to come back talking a little bit more about those indictments, but also I want to get to this story about this TV star. You guys are going to like this one. She got angry because her movie was sold to a network that promotes family values. Why are you angry? Whoa, an explosive interview. Found out a lot of cool things from David Shistokis. The key things to note is that David Shistokis and he's beaten Fannie Willis before. He's beaten her. Because what they were trying to do is get Stephen Lee to come down and kind of give testimony before this special grand jury, and they weren't going about the correct process for that, and they were violating Illinois law. And then there was an Illinois judge who said, "Absolutely not. You're not taking Stephen. You're not taking this pastor. You're not dragging him down to Fulton County to testify before this special grand jury." And they were blatantly just going against Illinois law and the process in which you have to bring somebody down for that testimony of that special grand jury. So that already happened. So we already have proof that these people are incompetent and that they can be beaten. Also, another key thing to note, David Shistokis, I'm assuming, has read that indictment. I think it's 98 pages, the indictment out of Fulton County, and he was talking about how they're referring to criminal acts as overt acts. So they're playing this word game where the RICO Act, from what I'm understanding, says that there has to be two criminal acts that further the enterprise, that further the conspiracy to overturn the 2020 election. There has to be two criminal acts. And they're redefining it as two overt acts in this indictment, and they refer to it, I think he said 167 times they refer to overt acts, and all of those 167 times it's wrong. The RICO Act, you can't change the law. The law is written to say, hey, two criminal acts. It's not criminal to knock on somebody's door and give somebody a phone call. These are acts. It doesn't say overt acts in the RICO Act, where it says you'd be in violation of some sort of racketeering or conspiracy or whatever. It says to criminal. So you have to do something criminal. And he didn't, Stephen Lee, the pastor. So we'll have to see how it all plays out. But David Stokes looking very calm, very cool, very collected. So I'm excited. Hey, be sure to smash that like button, share this out with your friends. David Shistokis joined me. That was an explosive interview, and you guys are going to want to go back and listen to it on cities929.com, or you can find the archives right there on my YouTube channel. Smash the subscribe button. That's Kat Peterson 929. We're going to be back talking a little bit about this story. Kind of light. It's a little bit lighter today. I like to go a little bit light. This 80 TV star, what's her name? She was on Full House, Jodie Sweetin. So she's big mad because her movie got sold to a network that promotes family values. And so she's real upset about that. And it's kind of funny because it's like, wait a second, why are you mad at Great American Family? That's the network. For promoting family values. What's so wrong about about the nuclear family, about family values? Apparently everything. So she issued a statement. She was like, "I'm so sorry to the LGBTQ community," and she just is like crying because her movie got sold to this network. Plus, I do want to get to this Australian whining about how there's too many flags in America, and I've got 5 reasons for her to go suck it. 5 reasons for her to suck it. Because Australia sucks, and you can go back there if you want, if the American flags bother you so much. Be sure to smash that like button. We're back. An explosive interview I had with David Shistokis. Now, he is quite the attorney. He's got a firm, has offices in Chicago, Joliet, Lamont, Fort Myers, Florida. He's got all kinds of offices. He's a renowned lawyer. Has helped us out here in the town of Normal, going up against that town for all kinds of things. Really, it was the big fight deciding whether Normal was a village or an incorporated town. And ultimately, that led to Sharon Chung changing the law to where Normal is kind of its own thing. So we love David Stokes, and two main points that I got from that interview. I'm sure David has read that entire indictment and he's doing his homework on it. And what he told me was that they're referring to things within the RICO Act. They're not truly being honest in this indictment because in order to be in violation of the RICO Act, you have to have committed two criminal acts, not two overt acts. And what they're doing is this word game with the law. But the law is the law and it's written the way it's written. And it says you have to commit two criminal acts to further the enterprise, further the conspiracy of overturning the 2020 election. And the man he is representing, Pastor Stephen Lee, did not commit criminal acts. He made a phone call and he knocked on a couple of doors. That's not criminal. And what they're trying to say is two overt acts makes you in violation of the RICO Act. And that's just not true. We're going to come back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Hey folks, I am sporting my pray shirt today. I'm praying for Fannie Willis because when things start crumbling down around her, it is going to be tough for her to grab on. I hope that she grabs onto something as things crumble down around her. Kim Gardner, this is nothing new. The Democrats, this is just hook, line, and sinker. They do it every time. There were indictments against this then governor, Eric Greitens. And Kim Gardner actually lost her license to practice. She was forced to resign as a DA, and now she's in nursing school. And Fanny, I have to ask you, what did they promise you in exchange for all of this, Fannie Willis? Did they promise you a Georgia Supreme Court seat? Did they promise you the governorship? What did they promise you? Because I'm telling you right now, sweetheart, you're going to run into a brick wall. That brick wall is called reality. And you're going to have the same fate that our girl Kim Gardner had when they tried to get her to do some dirty things and go after high profile Republicans and go after political opposition using prosecutor power. So we are going to be getting to a few things. One thing that is of great concern to me and I'm worried about is this Hawaii governor saying that the state is looking to acquire the land. That was very fast. The land that was destroyed by the fires. That was very fast. And I don't know why the state wants it. I'd imagine that they're not going to rebuild and that the state is going to use it for something, whether that be military. I think it's very bizarre that Oprah her mansion was untouched. Not even a blade of grass was singed. So there were a line of mansions that were not touched by the wildfires on that island. Um, if you want my true, honest opinion, I think that the state was looking to acquire this land prior to the fires. I can't prove that. However, I would not put it past these people. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't put it past these people. Uh, so yeah, that was very quick. The state wants that land, the singed land of the Maui fires. Uh, so we'll have to see. I'm concerned about that, and I think you should be too. Um, why did they want the land so bad? Also, White House press secretary Kieran Jean-Pierre, she deleted a tweet and it was written in Joe Biden's voice. So the person who runs Kieran Jean-Pierre's Twitter is also running Joe Biden's Twitter. And they made the mistake of tweeting on Kieran Jean-Pierre's account rather than Joe Biden's account. So let's look at the tweet itself. Kieran Jean-Pierre. If you're watching right now, go ahead and smash that like button. I see you watching. Be sure to like the post. That helps us out a lot. So her tweet says, investing in America means investing in all of America. When I ran for president, I made a promise that I would leave no part of the country behind. So yes, you are leaving the people of Maui behind because that death toll, it's rising. I mean, I'm sure it's up to 100 people at this point. It's tragic, so sad. And he gave no response or reaction other than no comment. And he smiled when he said it. Mr. President, any comment on the rising death toll of Maui? And he says, no comment. And then he smiled about it. And, I don't understand this $700 to help the people. Now, this is $700 per household, not per individual. And I don't know um, what what their goal is here. I don't know a measly $700 and what that's going to do, a one-time payment of $700 for the people of Maui. And I don't even know if they need money at this point because one, their mailboxes are probably all singed. How are you going to get the checks to them? And I get digital bank transfers and things like that, but like the grocery stores are singed up and $700 in Hawaii, that doesn't go so far for groceries. Uh and, like, are they paying rent? No, probably not because their houses need to be rebuilt. So this one-time payment of $700, I don't know what that's supposed to do, but it's not going to do much. And, you compare that with the billions of taxpayer money going to this Eastern European nation, Ukraine. He sent 113 billion. And then he greenlighted another 20 million just this past Monday. And, these $700 payments is totaling 1.9 million. That's it. Not even $1 billion is going over to uh, Maui. So this is tragic. And, I want to point this out. Donald Trump was the one who got out there and made a verbal statement, was a heartfelt message. We're back here in just a moment. I'm going to go grab some coffee real quick. So the Hawaii governor, he's saying that the state is looking to acquire the land that was destroyed by the fires. Well, that was quick. That's all I'm going to say about it, okay? So Josh Green has announced that his administration was considering acquiring the properties there in the town that caught fire. And he vowed to prevent foreign buyers from swooping in to exploit the tragedy, suggesting that the state was better suited to take control of the land. Hmm. Hmm. I don't know. This is weird. I'm just going to say that that's weird. The state is looking to acquire the land after it was destroyed in these fires. I do want to run through this because there's been more that has come out. We know that Joe Biden is giving a measly $700 per household. That's not $700 per person. And at this point, I don't know what the people of Maui are going to do with $700. Do they have mailboxes? Can you mail them checks? If it goes into their account digitally, what are they going to spend that money on? Because it's all singed. There's no grocery stores. There's no and not to mention $700 in Hawaii is not going to go very far on groceries. And what are they going to pay rent on something that's not even built? like, I And 99 is the last number I saw confirmed dead. This is expected to rise. There's over 1,000 people who are still missing, thousands of homes and businesses destroyed. Approximately, I think it's $6 billion in damages. Now, I bring this all up here on the Morning Buzz, and as always, you can see me live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Check it out. Subscribe to the channel, Cat Peterson 929. I bring this all up today because the White House press secretary, Karen Jean-Pierre, whoever runs her Twitter account, they tweeted out in Joe Biden's voice, investing in America means investing in all of America. When I ran for president, I made the promise that I would leave no part of the country behind. So, of course, that's in Joe Biden's voice. Karen Jean-Pierre's account accidentally posted that. Now, I'm sure the same people who are running the Joe Biden account are also running Karen Jean-Pierre's account, and they must have screwed up and accidentally clicked on the Karen Jean-Pierre account instead of Joe Biden's account. But I want to run through these numbers for you. 700 per household, just a measly 700. That doesn't go very far in Hawaii. All of those payments are totaling up to $1.9 million. That's it. That's it. $1.9 million to Maui to address the devastation. This is one of the most beautiful, one of the most beautiful places in the country, Maui, and it's been reduced to rubble. People are sifting through the ashes for memories, for people. They're sifting through the ashes of their shattered communities. And Joe Biden sends a measly $1.9 million. Meanwhile, an Eastern European nation, which is not a state of the United States. Okay, like it's not the 51st state, folks. There was no law declaring that Ukraine is the 51st state of the United States. Let me read this to you. He has sent $113 billion of taxpayer money to Ukraine. And just this past week, on Monday, we saw him greenlight another $200 million. I just told you $1.9 million to Maui. And Ukraine had $200 million just in this past week. I like the comments here. You can always throw in a comment or text in, Kat, that's because Ukraine washes money better. Yes. That's because they haven't figured out how to profit off of the tragedy in Maui. Now, they're thinking of ways to do that. Hawaii governor saying that the state is going to acquire those properties and that it would be best if the state were to take control of the land. And yeah, that's concerning. I do want to get to a couple of stories here on the Morning Buzz before I get to Chris Christie surpassing Ron DeSantis in New Hampshire. Trump is 40 points ahead in that poll in New Hampshire. It's an Emerson College poll, so we're going to get to that here coming up in just a bit. But a couple of lighter stories for you. Jodie Sweetin, do you know who that is? So she played the middle daughter, Stephanie Tanner, on the 80s, 90s sitcom Full House. So I used to watch Full House a little bit. A few decades had passed, and now she played Stephanie Tanner. I don't know if it's still on, but it's Fuller House in 2020. That's when that came out. Fuller House. It's like a decades later, and where are the stars now kind of thing. So now what she's doing, Jodie Sweetin, she's making Hallmark style movies. And she's big mad. She's upset that the network of one of her films got sold. That the network one of her films got sold to is a network that promotes family values. And she finds herself, Jodie Sweetin, apologizing to the LGBTQIAPPIIO2 community. Right. So she issued this statement. Well, her PR team did. They released a statement on behalf of the actress. She says, quote, I was very surprised to learn by reading about it in the press yesterday that the independent film I worked on over a year ago was sold to Great American Family. That's a network. Quote, I'm disappointed but I'm keeping with my mission of supporting the LGBTQ plus family. Any potential or future money made on this sale will be donated to the LGBTQ organizations. Great American Family, the network, is at issue here. When a network when the network poached Sweeten's TV sister, Candace Cameron, she's really big on Hallmark, and the Great American Family Network. They grabbed her TV sister, and she, I think, also played in Full House as the Jodie Sweeten's sister, Candace. The CEO of the network was going to, quote, keep traditional family at the core. That's when uh, Candace came over to the network. The CEO of that network said they're going to keep traditional family values at the core. Critics like Jodie Sweetin believe things that like traditional marriage and family values are anti-LGBTQ for some reason, and I don't understand that. Like that's where Jodie Sweetin is coming from. She says that traditional family values and traditional marriage, or family values, traditional marriage, that is all anti-LGBTQ, and I don't know where she's getting that from. And don't get me wrong, I really enjoy the culture war fights as much as the next right winger. Okay, I love culture war fights, but I know gay people. Gay people enjoy corny movies about the same story with the same interchangeable characters, changing only the small town in which one of them moved to the city, right? We know the plot of a lot of these Hallmark movies. The girl, she moves out of the city, she moves to a small town, and really what happens in these movies, they just change. They keep the plot the same, the characters the same. They just change the names of these towns. That's it. Uh, and gay people like those films as much as straight people do. In fact, if you took 5 gay people, 5 straight people, put them in a focus group, 9 out of 10 of them probably wouldn't notice who's marrying who as much as I think they'd all agree that these movies are getting lazier and lazier and that they're just kind of dull, right? That this is the same interchangeable, like they just do the same characters, same story, these Hallmark movies. And it's just a bunch of mindless mush. I do like Hallmark movies, don't get me wrong. I don't think that they are as bad as the Disney movies, where the Disney movies, they're trying to see how woke they can go, um, and how broke at the same time, how broke they can get. But poor Jodie Sweetin, she finds her movie being sold to a network that doesn't create stories about a gay couple. And look, I don't I don't get if 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 a bad network, a so-called bad network, makes the actor or this actress feel so desperate to where she has to signal her virtue. Good for you. Good for you, Great American Family, because you definitely are over the target. If you're peeving uh, Jodie Sweetin off, if you're peeving her off, then I think you're making all the right moves. And gay people like traditional marriage. They like these movies. I don't know any gay person that doesn't like a Hallmark movie once in a while, right? My favorite Hallmark movie, you ask, Hitched for the Holidays. It's one of my favorites. So look it up, Hitched for the Holidays. I love watching that around Christmas time. Okay. Let's shift gears here. Let's go to Koala Karen. So Koala Karen, she's an Australian and she's big mad that there's a lot of American flags in the United States and that she has to see them. So she says this, she's a dingbat and she's living in America and she's going viral for seeing too many American flags in America. That's how they do things. I guess that's not how they do things in Australia, but it's how we do things here. And this is her on TikTok, and it's gone viral now. I'm going to share it with you guys, and you guys can see it if you're watching live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. But let's take a listen to Koala Karen. Her name really doesn't matter. It doesn't. And so I'm not even going to bother finding her name. Let's just call her Koala Karen.
I'm just going to say it. There are too many American flags. Like, they're on houses, they're on cars, saw them on couch cushions. Like, I don't know who's making these American flags, but they'd be making a bloody fortune. And, like, you're the only country that I know that does this. Like, The only time I think I've ever seen an Australian flag is like on the Harbour Bridge. Could not tell you what it looks like. Like I know it's like blue and it's got some stars on it, but I think I could draw the American flag from memory. Like I think I could make a bloody sculpture out of it. That's how many times I've seen it. It's enough. Let's pull back on it, okay? Let's stay humble.
Actually, no. Let's not pull back on it, and let's keep making American flags and putting them out there. I mean, I will wear an American flag. I will put an American flag on my car. I will do whatever it takes to peeve this woman off even further. She's hardly the first leftist who has whined about the American flag. It's virtue signaling progressivism 101. I mean, leftists just do this thing. But coming from an Australian, that's what really piqued my interest here, because Australia was the first country to unveil plans for what's called a Freedom Pass. Now, that's an app that the Australians had to download on their phones to prove that they were vaccinated, so they could, well, do anything. They had to have this app on their phone to prove that they were vaccinated. To quote the Australian government, here we go. If you want your life to continue close to normal, get your jab. No vax means no freedom pass. That's what they were saying, the government. So, in the name of public health, Australia said no exercising in the name of public health, because this makes sense. Don't exercise and go into complete isolation unless the government gave you permission. People weren't allowed to visit one another. You had to get permission to visit someone. One had to register with the state if you wanted to go visit with somebody. The Australian Army, they were called in to enforce these health orders. They were sent to supplement the police force that went door to door to ensure that all these citizens were complying with the government mandates. So they called in the army along with the police. They had the police, the army, they had all the all the enforcement out there trying to get you to comply with these mandates. There was also a time where a woman was thrown into a quarantine facility because her friend tested positive for COVID, but this woman didn't test positive for COVID. Her friend did. And then the police showed up at her house. They drug her away and they locked her up in some sort of facility anyway, even though she did not test positive for COVID. Oh, and my favorite one, the Australia public health chief gleefully referred to the lockdowns as, and I'm quoting, part of the New World Order. That's my favorite one. So yeah, Miss Koala Karen, you can take your Australian whining about, our flag, and you can take your Australian flag, roll it up, and stick it up your nose, because I don't want to hear how you hate the American flag. We didn't go through any of that. Now we went through craziness here in the United States. Not too far off from that, but people weren't being drugged from their homes and locked into quarantine camps. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Quarantine camps. We're going to be back here on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. There's one more story I want to get to here. Chris Christie surpassing Ron DeSantis in New Hampshire. Well, I could have called that. That's next on the Morning Buzz. Koala Karen, that's her name. And of course, Candace is the sister of Kirk Cameron. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Kirk is making waves at libraries everywhere by forcing them to host a wholesome reading hour in response to the drag queen reading hours. I love the Camerons. I had no idea that Kirk Cameron and Candace Cameron were brother and sister. That makes so much more sense. So she went over to the Great American Family Network, and the Great American Family CEO, of course, has said that we're sticking by family values, traditional marriage, thing like that. We're not going to bend the knee. And they're the only network who does that. And that's one thing that really peeves me off about the whole thing, is that, Jodie Sweetin, who was on Full House, the 80s, 90s sitcom, um, like literally every other network on in the nation is and streaming service every other single one that would carry anything that you produce as an actress, any other film would is pro LGBTQ. There's literally only like one network, and you're upset because your film got sold to this one network one time. It's like, relax, lady, chill out. And like I said, since when did traditional marriage and family values become anti-LGBTQ? It's not. Like, gay people love traditional marriage too. Like, they just love love, right? I don't see how that's anti-LGBTQ. Just making movies about straight people. Gay people don't hate straight people, same as straight people don't hate gay people. It's ridiculous. They're causing division where it really doesn't need to be. Like I said, we did talk with David Shostokis earlier this morning. If you guys missed it, it was fantastic. There were a few things I learned. So, in this indictment, a lot of times what they're going to be referring to as overt acts, that's wrong. So, the RICO Act, what they're charging a lot of these folks with, Donald Trump and a lot of his allies, they're charging them with the RICO Act, or saying they were in violation of the RICO Act. And in order to be in violation of the RICO Act, you have to have committed two criminal acts. But of course, being the left, they changed the language, and they're saying that they're two overt acts. Doesn't matter if they're criminal or not, two overt acts to further your conspiracy or whatever is what makes you in violation of the RICO Act. And that's just not true, because the RICO Act says you have to do two criminal acts. So we talked about Stephen Lee. Stephen Lee is an Illinois pastor who's being represented by David Shostokis. He's advocating on his behalf as his attorney. And Stephen Lee, he went to somebody's house, knocked on a door or so. Ruby Freeman, there was this infamous video of her boxes, taking a box out from underneath the table. And people were like, wait a second, that kind of looks shady. So we've got Stephen, this pastor, going to, her neighbor's house, then to her house, knocking on a couple of doors and making a phone call. And that is not against the law. Like, that's not criminal. Knocking on somebody's door, you cannot go after somebody for that criminally. So, of course, what they've done, they've said that those are overt acts to further the conspiracy of overturning the 2020 election. But the law says that you have to commit something, you have to do something criminal. And that's not criminal. None of that is criminal to call somebody. And they are going after all of these people as if they're the mob and that they were a part of this grand conspiracy. Really, what these people were doing, they were just trying to make sure that this election had integrity. And God forbid, Mark Meadows, right? Mark Meadows was asking for signature verification. There's nothing wrong with signature verification. When you go in, you vote. That election judge, that poll watcher, they check your signatures, and stay on the lookout this election, folks. There should be two election judges, one Republican, one Democrat. And they should have double signature verification. There should be two people there who check your signature, not one, but two people. That is the Illinois law. Two people should be checking that signature of yours when you go in to vote, because that is the only way to ensure that you are registered to vote in, or that you are able to vote in an American election. Is through that signature. We don't have things like voter ID because the Democrats hate that. Although that would be much easier. What we have to do is check your signature at the time you registered to vote, you sign something. So they check your signature that you do, or that you have when you go in to vote, you sign something. And then they check that signature with what you signed originally when you went into, or when you registered to vote. All right, I'm back. Hold on. Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams. I mean, she's out there, and there's 5 straight minutes of her denying the 2018 election. When are we going to indict Stacey Abrams? Let's take a listen. Here we go.
One very
the word steal. Do you think it's dangerous going into 2020?
I don't, because we can actually back it up.
And so in response to what I believe was a stolen election, and I'm not saying they stole it from me, they stole it from the voters of Georgia.
In fact, someone outside asked if I'm ever going to concede. The answer is no.
This is not a speech of concession, because concession means to acknowledge an action is right, true, or proper. And I will not concede, because the erosion of our democracy is not right.
People like you, man, they're going to steal your election.
It was not a free and fair election. I think the election was stolen from the people of Georgia.
I believe it was stolen from the voters.
Thousands of Georgians had their voices stolen because they were not able to cast ballots, and they cannot.
Stacey Abrams denying the 20. So the question remains, when is she going to be indicted? And I've got more questions. Fannie Willis, what did they promise you? I want to know. What did they promise you in exchange for all of this? Did they promise you a Georgia Supreme Court seat? Did they promise you the governorship? Look at Kim Gardner. Look that up. Kim Gardner. She was the last one they tried this with. This is Democrat playbook. They go after their political opposition. They do it all of the time. And they tried this with Kim Gardner. She actually got some indictments on Eric Greitens, the then governor, indictments on the McCluskey's investigation after investigation. But in the end, she eventually ran into a brick wall. That brick wall is called reality. And she was forced to resign as a DA, and she actually got her license revoked. She's no longer allowed to practice, and she is currently going to nursing school. So Fannie Willis, I ask you, is it worth it? Mark Meadows, all he was doing was asking for signature verification. That's all he was doing. And they're charging him for that. And let me tell you something, the Georgia governorship, Republican, both houses controlled by Republicans, they're not lifting a finger on any of this. They could stop all of this right now if they wanted to. The same way they could have verified those signatures, but they didn't want to. Mark Meadows wanted signature verification, and they charged him for wanting that. They charged him for proactively trying to make sure our elections had integrity. And it's not about the enemies at the gates, folks. It's about the traitors in your midst. Make no mistake, there's traitors here, McLean County. And I pray for Fannie Willis. I do, because this is dangerous and it's going to come crashing down all around her. And I hope that she's able to find something to hold on to, because I am a Christian and I'm praying for her. And my shirt today does say pray, and that's brought to you by Rooted Apparel. If you're watching on the stream, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, you can find their website in the description of the video. Now, before we took the break, I was telling you guys a little bit about Ron DeSantis. Big yikes. He is falling behind quickly, very quickly. And Chris Christie, of all people, surpassed Ron DeSantis in New Hampshire. Trump is 40 points ahead. This is an Emerson College poll. And Donald Trump is just dominating everywhere he goes. And here's the thing. People, and I know his consultants are telling him this, and I am enraged about the LGBTQ stuff, the trans stuff in the schools, pushing that on children, the drag queen story time hour. I hear you. However, all of that doesn't matter if we don't have something to eat, and if the country winds up in some sort of World War III situation. Okay, all of that does not matter in the grand scheme of things when we've got people dying in the streets, when crime is running rampant. And I think Donald Trump, he's pulling well with evangelicals. He's pulling well with everybody, because he is the candidate who's going to keep us from some sort of World War III situation. And I hate when people are like, we're nowhere near a World War III situation. Shut up. Shut up. The U.S. literally had to deploy destroyers out into international waters because we were unaware that China and Russia had these ships. They were ships in Alaskan waters, and we were like, "Oh boy, what are they doing? We don't even know what they're doing." So we actually deployed destroyers, and we were like, "We're ready. We're gonna try. We're gonna go to war with Russia and China right here, right now, in these Alaskan waters." It was international waters, but it was close to Alaska, and that should serve as a reminder of how close Russia and China are to not only each other but to the United States geographically. And it just makes me so mad when people have their heads in the sand and they're like, "Cat, that's not even. We're not even remotely near it." Shut up. Shut up. Tell me why the Chinese spy balloon was floating over our heads. Did you not look up and see the Chinese spy balloon? Could you not see the video footage? Like what? Why are they surveilling? Why are they? Why is the Chinese spy balloon there? But Ron DeSantis, second place. Here's a poll, and it's a good poll because typically, like I've said, these polls only poll like about 500, 600 people. Tracking polls. This was 837 Republican or over 837 Republicans. So this was a big poll, and it was conducted between August 9th and 11th. Donald Trump sits in first place, 49% support. Ron DeSantis sat comfortably at second for months, but now he's moved to third with 8%, just shy of Chris Christie's 9%. So a full 13%, though, in this poll, and this is what's concerning to me, 13% of the 837, oh, it was 837 Republican voters surveyed. Um, in the state, they said that they were undecided. So we've still got a lot of undecided, but there was a poll that came out that said that Trump was doing very well with independents. He was beating Joe Biden and Ron DeSantis with independents nationwide. So I forget what that poll was called, but I saw it. We're going to be back, and Scott is going to be joining me for Scott's takes. But then also in the 8 o'clock hour, I do want to get to this. Uh, Hillary Clinton and Rachel Maddow, they were on MSNBC together and they just were giddy over this indictment out of Fulton County, Georgia. This is the Morning Buzz. See me live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Little Adam Kingsinger. I'm
God.
just not understanding where he's. Did he think that this was a sick burn or what? Scott Robbins, this is the Morning Buzz. I think he was trying to burn Lauren Boebert here on Twitter, but
It's isn't it
coming off
funny?
as bizarre.
I don't understand this guy. He wants to mix it up in the big leagues and is way out over his skis because and he goes on social media trying to be clever, trying to be the clever one. Okay, the case in point, Lauren Boebert, and you've got the tweet that she sent out first, and then Adam responded to her.
Mhm.
So I'll let you read it, Kat. This is what Lauren said.
Yeah, so she says, in a sane country, Fannie Willis wouldn't have a job after the indictment she just released, which is true. She released it
True of
prior.
Donald Trump. Yeah.
She released it prior to the grand jury even
Yes.
finishing up the testimony, which you can't do.
Right.
But we're not living in a fair country. We're living in a banana republic. So that's what Lauren.
That's what
Boebert
she
said.
tweets out. Yes. That's what Lauren Boebert says. And then cue Kinzinger's reaction. And he says,
Nor would you. That's it.
so she wouldn't have a job either if it weren't for what?
Uh,
I don't. I'm not as smart as Adam, so I can't figure out what he's trying to do or say. But the pylon just started almost immediately. I mean, the guy gets dogpiled every single time he throws something out there online that's stupid.
mhm.
People just, clap back at him so hard. I don't understand. And look, I don't know Adam Kinzinger at all. I don't know him. My daughter went to high school with him. I can tell you that. Well, she didn't know him either. But at any rate, Adam Kinzinger is a guy who was at one time a rising star within the Republican Party. Rising star, young guy, conservative. This is who he was. He decided at some point in time that was not enough. Under the guise of I'm not a traitor to America and look at me, trying to somehow fit in at the cool kids table at lunch by abandoning everything that got him there and becoming this thing, right? And then the January 6th thing, and then the weeping, then the crying, then the pounding his fist, and now he's become this liberal mouthpiece that no one likes. I mean, the left doesn't like him because he was a Republican at one point in time, right?
Mhm.
And the right hates him. So he finds himself with no lane at all. Now, I don't know what he's doing. I don't know why he's doing it. If he's on CNN, I never see him, but I never really watch CNN. Some one of these people, Kat, if I don't like something, I just don't watch it or listen to it or whatever, right?
What a concept.
I know. I don't email the person or text them or whatever and bitch about their product. I know that's a vague concept that's hard to figure out, but I just simply ignore and move on. But and apparently everybody's ignoring this guy because he gets, and they clap back on him immediately.
Yeah.
I mean,
What about you, Kingsinger? You don't even have a job.
You don't have a job. I mean, you got whatever job you have, but I don't know what it is. I don't know what they're paying you for. But I think they thought they were getting a guy who they could go, see, the Republicans think that too. Here's Adam Kinzinger, a Republican, and he's not. I mean, he tried to worm his way into the cool kids club, and every time you do that, their usefulness for him was long gone. They threw him under the bus, and that's the end of that.
Well, and I think the same thing is going to happen to Fannie Willis here. I mean,
It may. Yeah.
And do you remember Kim Gardner? I was reading up on Kim
Yes.
Gardner
Oh, yeah.
crazy yesterday, and it's amazing. She was going after high-profile Republican candidates too, and they had her resign from her DA position, but not only resign, they took away her license. Now she's in nursing school, redoing her career at her age, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's
gone. Well, I mean, it happens.
They chew you up, they spit you out. They don't
Well,
care.
and the thing is, they gerrymandered him out of his district, so he can't win. He couldn't win. That's how much they liked him. I mean, the usefulness is there for a while. Kinzinger was very useful to them. And as soon as that usefulness went away, they kicked him to the curb, and that's where he's been ever since. All right, moving on. Kamala Harris.
Mamala.
Mhm.
Mamala. Okay.
She was talking about the Arizona desert and the windmills they put there and the energy they have there. And anyway, she had this to say yesterday.
Electricity from wind and solar farms in the Arizona desert delivered to people millions of miles away, potentially, well, certainly thousands of miles away. Bit of a typo there. But but delivered to millions of people.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. It was a little quiet, but
I don't know why I'm not hearing anything, but anyway, she said that, and then of course she's reading everything off the teleprompter because that's what these people do, and it said millions of miles, and then she caught herself going, well, that's ridiculous. Even she caught that one. Joe would have just moved on. Joe was talking about the deficit too yesterday. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
The president was telling us that Bidenomics is a big deal, and he was going to scream from the mountaintops how much money he's cut. And it sounds good, but it's not true. But anyway, here we go. Uh-huh.
$1,700,000,000,000 cut. And unlike the
Okay. In 2020, it was we owed 23.6 trillion. In 2023, 3.7 trillion. That's not cutting. Just for those who are there.
Bidenomics.
It's just sad, and it just gets out there, and it's just he just says things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's remarkable.
And,
also,
you know,
yes.
I'm really upset about the whole Maui wildfires thing and
geez.
the numbers behind that. He's given a measly $700 per household. That totals up to 1.9 million. Just
Right.
this past week, he gave to the 51st state, of course, of the United States, Ukraine, $200 million.
Yeah.
Overall, he's given 113 billion. Like, what? I hate Bidenomics because American citizens take the back seat.
Well, there's no such thing. It's just spending money endlessly.
Mm-hmm.
Endlessly. There's no. I mean, again, this guy's not saving any money. Give me the receipts on how you did that, Joe. What did you do to save 1.7 trillion billion gazillion dollars? What did you do? Tell me what you cut. Cable? Did you cut the cable bill? Did you cut your grocery bill at the White House? I mean, what did you do? I mean, they never talk about specifics. Like, here's what I cut. No, of course not, because he can't.
I think they cut some staff over at the social media department because clearly they're overworked because somebody accidentally tweeted that thing.
you saw this, right?
Yeah, I don't know who they've got working there, but they screwed up.
It's funny because every time I see a tweet from Joe Biden, I'm like, well, that's coherent.
Well, that's coherent.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the bar is so low, it's like, that's coherent. Mm-hmm. The tweet is, whether I like it or not, it's another thing. But it's coherent. I understand it when he does it, and it's written in a way that, okay. And there's always been talk of conversations. Joe doesn't dictate anything. This is all done by somebody else, and Joe just is the figurehead, right? Mm-hmm. And it happened. And again, this really happened. This came out on Jean Van Camp, Pierre Mellencamp, whatever her name is, on her Twitter account. Investing in America means investing in all of America. When I ran for president, I made a promise that I would leave no part of the country behind. This is on her Twitter page. She's not the president. This was intended to be on Biden's Twitter page, right?
Yeah.
But again, he didn't write it. She did. This is like a Milli Vanilli moment when they didn't really sing, and they got caught.
Yeah.
And they got caught. And again, if we were ever to believe that Joe Biden was actually doing this, and again, I don't know if anybody did, so maybe it'll come as a surprise to no one, but this is really embarrassing. And that was up for 20 minutes before somebody called her and went, hey, you got to take that down. That was supposed to go on the president's page. Oh.
They must have cut somebody from the social media department because, or they're all overworked because a mistake like that. Whew.
Well, it again, this is the lip syncing part of this presidency, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no thought there. Right? Gee whiz. And there's proof of it right there.
Yeah, well, and I bet it wasn't even Kieran Jean-Pierre who accidentally tweeted that out. It's probably like, I don't know, White House staff that run both those accounts, and they accidentally didn't switch over from the Kieran Jean-Pierre account to the Joe Biden account. Like, that's how these people are
probably the first pansexual person in the
Yes.
in the White House
Yes.
media room, right? Yes.
And the guy who they probably steal women's clothing from
Because
the
it's got
baggage claim.
it's got to be something for something, right? Or diversity hire. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, anyway.
It's probably the
Embarrassing.
TikToker who was naked on the White House front lawn.
Well-
and flashing everybody with the fake boobs.
You know, the thing is, Kat, if you
wouldn't
want to
know.
win hearts and minds, that's the stuff you do. Because America goes, oh, okay, I get it now. Yeah. God. All right. Talk to you later.
Talk to you
See you.
later, Scott
All
Robbins.
right.
Scott Robbins, Scott's Takes. It happens every weekday morning at about 7:35. We're going to be back talking a little bit about Rachel Maddow and Hillary Clinton. They were just a little too giddy on MSNBC over these Trump indictments. Hillary, you denied the election multiple times in 2016. When are you going to be indicted? you do the actual math on this, how much Joe Biden has given Ukrainians in comparison to the victims of the Maui wildfire, and it is insane. So he is given a one-time check, $700 check for people per household, for people who've lost everything. And when you do the math, it looks like people in Ukraine, it's $2,500 per person, because Joe Biden, over the course of his presidency, has sent $113 billion to Ukraine. And you break all of that down, that's $2,500 per person, not per household, per person in Ukraine, where the cost of living is actually 70% cheaper than it is in the Democrat Party run state of Hawaii. So $700 not going to go very far in Hawaii for things like groceries. Plus, I don't even understand why we're giving them cash like per household, which is great if it would be, not the measly $700. But I don't know why we're giving cash, because right now they don't even have uh, they don't have food, they don't have shelter, they don't have a whole lot of that stuff. And it's like, what are they going to do with cash? To go to a grocery store? There is no grocery store. It's been reduced to rubble. People are sifting through the ashes of their shattered communities. And Joe Biden is like, yeah, here's a measly $700. Meanwhile, over the course of his presidency, per person in Ukraine, he has given $2,500 to those individuals. We're going to come back. Budweiser, they're being blasted for this latest desperate attempt to win back their customers. And they ripped off of YUENGLING, which is this pro-American beer. It's their competitor, and they're ripping off this pro-American competitor with this marketing campaign. I've got it here next on The Buzz. Wow. You look at the number breakdown. If you're watching right now, go ahead and hit that like button for me. Just punch it. And don't be afraid if your boss sees that you like this program. Don't be afraid to be like shamed. People like shame you for liking conservative content. Don't let them win. Just like the program. Smash the like button and be sure to check us out on Facebook. And if you have a question, throw it into the comments. One thing that I wanted to bring up, Ezekiel here, he's saying, what's MAGA? What's plan B if Donald Trump is indicted and convicted and in prison? Most likely what's going to happen is that we're going to write him in anyway. So the thing about leadership, and it's very simple, if the leader doesn't abandon the people won't abandon the leader. It's very simple. And likely what will happen if somehow they manage to toss him off the ballot, or if he's convicted in jail, he's going to be voted in that presidency anyway, via that, whether that be via write-in or if he is running from prison. People, I think 70% of Republicans said that they would vote for Donald Trump even if he were in prison. That's a lot. Like behind bars, locked up, convicted. That's 70% of Republicans saying, going beyond just conviction. If he was in jail and sitting behind bars, 70% of Republicans. And here's the thing: there is no Republican Party if it's not if it's not Trump. Okay, if it not be for Trump, because here's the thing: you look at the numbers. Trump saved the Republican Party. You look at Mitt Romney, his election, those numbers terrible. I mean, practically Obama almost won the state of Missouri, a Republican stronghold. I mean, they were on the fritz, and we're looking at, the Republican Party possibly becoming a regional party, maybe like a Southern party or like parts of the Midwest, a party that is irrelevant in comparison to the Democrat Party. That's what we were looking at prior to Donald Trump. Donald Trump revitalized the Republican Party, and he was winning states that nobody thought he was going to win. I mean, this was a incredible, the 2016 election. And you don't see numbers like this. I think the last time Republicans had numbers kind of similar, Reagan definitely beat Donald Trump's numbers, but Ronald Reagan, right? He was so popular, and Trump has revitalized the Republican Party. What will happen is the Republican Party will go back to their previous numbers and will become not a national party, but rather a regional party or like some sort of Southern party. Maybe it would include parts of the Midwest, but um, there is no Republican Party if Donald Trump is not president in 2024. Mark my words. Okay. Now, we talked with Dave Stokas. There is an Illinois attorney or an Illinois pastor. Now, he also was the chaplain for the police department for the uh, Chicago police. And he's been in charge. He's been charged now alongside Donald Trump in connections with efforts to try to intimidate Georgia election workers, which is just false. You can knock on somebody's door and call somebody to ask them questions about the election, and that is not unlawful. So, according to the indictment, it singles out Stephen Lee, a pastor within the Lutheran Church, Missouri. Is synod denomination. He and 18 others, quote, unlawfully conspired and endeavored to conduct and participate in a criminal enterprise in Fulton County, Georgia, and elsewhere. So, a key thing that we learned from David Shestokas earlier this morning was that they're trying to go after Stephen Lee for his overt acts of uh, contacting this election worker via telephone and going to the door of her neighbor in her house. That's not illegal. Okay. That's not criminal. These are actions, and they're trying to say that those actions were in violation of the RICO Act and that those acts were criminal. They're not criminal. But in the indictment, they kind of shoot themselves in the foot here because they say that these are overt acts. And the RICO, in order to be in violation of the RICO Act, you have to have committed two acts of criminal acts. You have to have committed two criminal acts. And in the indictment, they don't even call them criminal acts. They call them overt acts because that's exactly what they are. They're just actions. He made a phone call, knocked on a couple of doors. And what they're trying to do here is say that he was in violation of the RICO Act, but he's not because those weren't criminal acts. So they're changing the definition of the RICO Act, and it's not going to work. David Shestokas also said that they have won against Fannie Willis before. Fannie Willis illegally, and this is according to a judge in Illinois, was trying to get Stephen Lee, the pastor, to come down to Fulton County to testify before the special grand jury. And the judge in Illinois was like, no, you're not going through the correct process here. You don't just get to do that. You have to comply with Illinois law when it comes to extraditing, I guess, people to come and testify before your special grand jury. There's a process, and she wasn't following the process. So they won in that case, and the Illinois judge said, nope, not, you can't do this, Fannie Willis. So it's going to be interesting to see if David Shestokas can pull out another win. I'm sure he will. It sounds like he's already building a pretty solid case in that they're calling these actions overt actions, not criminal actions. So they're kind of admitting it themselves that these aren't criminal actions, thereby not violating the RICO Act because you need to commit two criminal acts in order to be in violation of that RICO Act that further your criminal enterprise. So I'm going to be back. Let's take a listen. Fannie, what did they promise you in exchange for all of this? Did they promise you a Georgia Supreme Court seat? Did they promise you the governorship? And just look at Kim Gardner, okay? They did this with Kim Gardner. This is nothing new. They've been doing this where they take DAs, power-hungry DAs. They promise them the world. They say, oh, well, we're going to promise you this seat. We're going to promise you a seat on the Supreme Court. And we just ask that you go after our political opposition. So Kim Gardner, she went after Eric Greitens. He was the then governor. Then she had indictments against the McCluskeys, investigation after investigation. And eventually Kim Gardner, in the story of Kim Gardner, she ran into a brick wall. That's reality. And not only did she have to resign from being a DA, but she also lost her license completely. And now she's in nursing school and she has to redo her life over. Like she's redoing her life, Fanny. So, Fanny, I ask you, is it worth it to go after political opposition in this way? It's not about the indictments. It's about these prosecutors working the election clock. They waited 30 months for a reason to go after Donald Trump for all of this stuff. Mark Meadows, he just wanted signature verification, signature matching. That is not a crime. That is actually good. Up is down, right is left, good is bad. He wanted signature verification. He wanted integrity in our elections. And that's all he wanted. And now they're indicting him for it. They're charging him. And let me tell you something. Georgia, controlled by a Republican governor, they have Republicans in both the houses. And they could put a stop to all of it, but they won't. Just like they could have checked those signatures, but they didn't. They didn't. They didn't verify those signatures. It's not the enemies at the gates, it's the traitors in our midst. Remember that. And remember this when you go vote in the 2024 primary. There should be somebody there, 2 people, who check your signature. So we don't have things like voter ID because the Democrats hate things like voter ID, although that would make literally everybody's life so much easier. It's just to verify your ID, voter ID. When you go in, they match your signature. You go in, you sign, and then they try to match your signature to what your signature was when you registered to vote. And there needs to be 2 people. Should be, I think they're election judges. 2 people need to check that signature. And it should be Republican and Democrat, but Republicans don't have a whole lot of election judges. But it should be 2 people who check your signature when you go to vote. And I'm praying. I really am praying for Fanny because Fanny, you're in dangerous territory here. And when it comes crashing down all around you, like it did for Kim Gardner, uh, you're going to want to find something to hold on to. So I pray for you. That's why I'm wearing my pray shirt today. If you want a shirt just like this one, you can see me live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. In the description of this video is the link to Rooted Apparel. When there's all kinds of uncertainty, we know that we can be certain of one thing, and that is Jesus Christ is King. And they have a Jesus Christ is King shirt. They have these awesome little pray shirts. So I recommend you go there. Now, let's get into it. Budweiser blasted for this latest desperate attempt to try to win back their customers, and Bud is ripping off this pro-America competitor, YUENGLING, this beer. And I'm going to be getting to that. Plus, 80s TV star is getting angry because her movie was sold to a network that promotes family values, and she's big mad. She's very mad. Her name's Jodie Sweetin, and she played on Full House, and then a decade later played on Fuller House. And now she does kind of like Hallmark style movies, and I guess her movie got sold to Great American Family, and she's big upset because, oh gosh, traditional marriage and things like family values, that's anti-LGBTQ. Whoa, who said that? I don't know where you're getting that from, but gay people love traditional marriage too. They love the storyline of these Hallmark movies. They have that family values. They love family values. So when in the world, when did it become anti-LGBTQ? If you like movies with traditional marriages in them, or if you like networks that air movies that have traditional marriage or family values in them. I don't understand it, but we're going to get to all of that. Budweiser, their new plan to get customers back. It sounds very familiar. And I was like, I'm having deja vu here. This is their latest ploy to try to convince people that they're patriotic. And what they've come out with, Budweiser, is a new can. It's camouflage. And they're trying to raise money for this veterans charity. It's called Folds of Honor. So it's never a bad time, and I want to make this clear. It's never a bad time to support families of our veterans and our first responders, and that goes double for families who have lost loved ones in the line of duty. Never a bad time. We've partnered with Hope for Warriors. They're our national nonprofit. You can donate to them at our website, cities929.com. Back the Blue, Team Blue Line with David Quinn. You can donate to them online at cities99.com. We love our first responders and we love our veterans. That's not what I'm saying here, period. It's good to support the families of veterans. But for some odd reason, I can't seem to shake this deja vu that I'm having with this whole new camouflage can raising money for veterans, because something about this plan to make the cans camouflage and raise money for veterans, it all seems very, very familiar. And there it is. It is familiar. Yuling has already done this. Okay, so Yuling stepped up when Budweiser failed at their real-time experiment. Make no mistake, that's exactly what that was with Dylan Mulvaney becoming an ambassador for Bud Light. They were experimenting about, they were trying to see how woke they could go and how much they could drive that ESG score up and at the same time keep customers. They were experimenting. And during that experiment, there was an opportunity that presented itself. And Yingling, they were an American brewery. They stepped up and they became America's beer. So Yingling 3 months ago announced this new camouflage can, and it has a red, white, and blue logo on it, and the proceeds benefit a veterans charity. So Wendy Yingling, the chief administrative officer of the corporation of the beer brewery, she says this in a statement: the oldest brewery in America. We are dedicated to supporting the United States military, and we are always seeking ways to further show our appreciation to those who protect our country's freedom. And then she says here, we are grateful to partner with Team Red, White, and Blue. And this is an organization who shares our devotion to the men and women that have served our nation's heroes. So, who has served as our nation's heroes. So she released that in a statement 3 months ago in regards to these camouflage cans raising money for vets. Budweiser comes out and they're like, oh, well, we see our former former customers, the people that we screwed, our former customers are buying Yingling as their anti-woke option. So we are going to do what Yingling has done, and we're going to come out with the camouflage can. The difference is that when an American-run company does it, it feels more authentic. And when a company run by foreign globalists like Anheuser-Busch, and a company that exposed who they really are with the ambassadorship of Dylan Mulvaney, this trans TikToker running around in little booty shorts, singing about the bulge in his pants. You know, when Anheuser-Busch does something like this, it feels pandery, and it feels like desperate pandering. That's what this is. And the Americans know it. We know it. We see right through it. So let's review. If you're thinking to yourself, Kat, I don't know what you're talking about, the controversy with Bud Light. First, controversial transgender performer Dylan Mulvaney. He runs around in tight leather shorts and sings show tunes about the bulge in his pants. And he announced that he was going to be a brand ambassador for Bud Light as part of this March Madness campaign. An odd choice, since Dylan Mulvaney's portrayal of a woman, he presented as this woman he was pretending to be as somebody who knew nothing about March Madness and was ditzy and didn't know anything about basketball. So that's what he did in his commercial. He was like, what's March Madness? But what Bud Light could have done was hire a true woman, a woman who wasn't pretending to be a woman, or a man who they could have just a biological woman, gotten in a brand ambassador, a biological woman who likes college basketball and knows what March Madness is. That's who they could have had endorse their brand. And then something else came out with the Bud Light controversy. This Bud Light VP, Alyssa, she was on a podcast, and she appeared on a podcast, and she's now disgraced for lashing out on that podcast at Bud Light customers, and she called them fratty and out of touch. That's what she said in this podcast. And she thought it was important, so she was behind the Dylan Mulvaney decision, and she thought it was important to go to a San Francisco marketing firm. It's an influencer marketing firm, and a part of that firm, there was Dylan Mulvaney, and that's how she came to that decision to bring Dylan Mulvaney on as an employee of Bud Light. And there's a trend with progressives. The only way they can be inclusive and for everyone is by taking a dump on people who currently enjoy their product. That's what they did. They said, "Screw you, Middle America. Screw you." No one at any level of Anheuser-Busch or Bud Light uttered the simple words that we were all looking for, which was, "Sorry, we messed up. We should not have hired Dylan." And I'm sure that these camouflage cans are going to work. I'm sure of it. No. We see right through it. I do need to take a quick break, but when we come back, Jodie Sweetin, she played the middle daughter on the 80s, 90s sitcom Full House. She was Stephanie Tanner, and a few decades had passed, and then she started playing on the 2020 sitcom Fuller House as Stephanie Tanner. Now she makes Hallmark movies, and she's big mad. She's upset that one of her films got sold to a network that is pro family, pro traditional marriage, and she finds herself, this Jodie Sweetin, apologizing to the LGBTQ community because her film got sold to one of these networks. I'm going to be back with her statement here next on the Morning Buzz. You can see me live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. If you are watching right now, go ahead and smash that like button. Alan, yes, I am going to be getting to that. So I didn't know that Candace Cameron, she is actually, I guess, the brother. So Burr, I guess is her last name, Candace. She went over to the Great American Family Network. That's the network. And the CEO said, well, when she moved over there, came out and said, "Hey, we are going to be sticking to traditional family values, traditional marriage. We are not going to bend the knee, and we're not going to throw gay couples in our movies just for the sake of throwing gay couples in our movies. We're going to stick to traditional family values." And Jodie Sweetin is big mad because Candace went over there, and she is a big part of that Great American Family Network. Really cool thing about Candace too, when Ashton Kutcher was testifying, I think before Congress about human trafficking, you can see Cameron behind Ashton Kutcher, and she is anti-human trafficking, which it's really cool to see that a lot of these celebrities, uh, the ones on the right, band together. So Ashton Kutcher, Candace, we're seeing, this rise in celebrities who are more right leaning. I would even say Chris Pratt is a part of that. So we'll have to see. There is like a great awakening happening within the entertainment biz. And this Great American Family Network, I think, is just the start of that. Uh, and there's only one network that has committed to traditional family values and to traditional marriage, and that is the Great American Family Network. So yeah, she's probably just big mad because Candace, I think, played her sister in the sitcom Full House. So I would imagine Jodie is big mad because Candace is getting to live her life as a conservative and as a Christian and as a mother, and Jodie is secretly upset by that because she has fallen victim to the Hollywood mob, and she's afraid of being canceled for having, because at our core, I think we all understand that nuclear families are good for America. They just are. It's not to say that uh, other families are bad. I have, if you want to know my opinion about homosexuality, there is a great video Paul Garcia and I had out there. You can go find it. It's Paul Garcia Productions. You could probably look it up. I'm on there, and he asked me about my views on homosexuality. I'm not going to go into that here, but and I think even gay people will acknowledge that nuclear families, a mother and a father in a household, is good. and mothers and fathers having children is good because let's face it, two gay men cannot have children. Uh, and we naturally, biologically, want to continue the human race. So, nuclear families just naturally, we all think that's a good thing because we want more people on the planet. Uh, our species, we don't want the species to die. That's just true across the board. Right, that's why lions, they have prides, they, band together. There's the women, the women lions, they go hunt, right, and they take care of the children, right? So there's things across just Earth, planet Earth, where species band together a lot of the times, and they will try to create more of their kind. That's just the way it goes. And I think that gay people can even hop on board to a fun Hallmark movie that promotes things like family values or traditional marriage. I think gay people even like those movies. Like, you're essentially saying that gay people are against traditional marriage and that it's anti LGBTQ to be pro traditional marriage or to be straight, which there is something by Vivek Ramaswamy that I might get to here. Actually, there's a clip of him talking about how the minority oppress that there is a tyranny of the minority and that it's starting to become a problem. And there was this pansexual reporter trying to bait Vivek Ramaswamy at the Iowa State Fair, and he just instead delivers this masterclass on how to instantly turn the tables on these folks. And I mean, we're gonna watch. Let's watch it. I'm gonna watch it with you here on the Morning Buzz. Vivek Ramaswamy just taking it down because it kind of fits into the story that I'm about to present. The Jodie Sweetin being all big mad about traditional families and this network promoting traditional families. And it's like, whoa, like when in this country did gay people, and that's very unfair to the gay community, like, or to actual gay people, because I know plenty of gay people, they're not mad that I'm straight, or they don't think that, straight people are anti LGBTQ. They like a Hallmark movie as much as the next guy, right? Um, in fact, I think we can all agree, straight, gay, that the Hallmark movies need to, stop recycling content and they need to come up with something new because I think we can all agree that that storyline is kind of dull. Uh, but I still love it. I do love the Hallmark movies. Jodie Sweetin, she's big mad, of course, because her film was sold to this network. It's called the Great American Family Network. And she's a big upset because the Great American Family Network has committed itself to things like traditional marriage and family values. And for some odd reason, Jodie thinks that traditional marriage and family values are anti LGBTQ. And I don't know about you. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love the culture war stuff and I love getting into fights as much as the next right winger, but I know gay people and I know some gay people, and I think that they enjoy the corny Hallmark movies with the same story, with the same interchangeable characters, changing only the names of the small towns, which one of them moved from the city to one of these small towns. The girl did. She fell in love. Right? I mean, we know the storyline of these Hallmark movies, and I think that gay people like the storyline too. Naturally, as creatures, I think that we want to populate the human species and continue to populate the human species. And I think that gay people would even go as far as to say that yes, the nuclear family is a good thing. And before I get into this story about Jodie Sweetin and how she had to issue a statement apologizing to the LGBTQ community because her film was sold to the Great American Family Network, I want to talk about Vivek Ramaswamy because Vivek Ramaswamy was at the Iowa State Fair and he completely just trounces this pansexual reporter who tries to bait him and tries to, say that he's some sort of bigot, and that's just not true. Let's take a listen here because He talks about the tyranny of the minority, and I think that's what we're starting to see
What were your
here.
opinions on the LGBTQ plus community?
Well, I don't think it's one community.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, how could it be? Just mashed together an alphabet soup. Trans is fundamentally in tension with gay, if you ask me. But what's your opinion?
I'm personally pansexual, so I was
Okay.
just wondering what your views on same-sex couples were.
I don't have a negative view of same-sex couples, but I do have a negative view of a tyranny of the minority. So I think that in the name of protecting against the tyranny of the majority, and there are times in this country's history where we have had a tyranny of the majority, we have now, in the name of protecting against tyranny of the majority, created a new tyranny of the minority. And I think that that's wrong. I don't think that somebody who's religious should be forced to officiate a wedding that they disagree with. I don't think somebody who is a woman who's worked really hard for her achievements should be forced to compete against a biological man in a swim competition. I don't think that somebody who's a woman that respects her bodily autonomy and dignity should be forced to change clothes in a locker room with a man. That's not freedom, that's oppression. And so I believe that we live in a country where free adults should be free to dress how they want, behave how they want, and that's fine. But you don't become oppressive by foisting that on others. And that especially includes kids, because kids aren't the same as adults. And so I think adults are free to make whatever choices they want, but do not foist that ideology onto children before children are in a position as adults to make decisions for themselves. And so I think a lot of the frustration in the country, and if I'm being really honest, that I also share, comes from that new culture of oppression where saying those things can actually get somebody punished. And in my case, it's part of why it's my responsibility to say them. And I respect that you may have a different opinion, and that's okay. Part of what makes our country great is that you and I can be civil and have this conversation.
So there you have it. There's Vivek Ramaswamy. And I bring that up this morning because Jodie Sweetin is out there, and she played the middle daughter, Stephanie Tanner, on the 80s, 90s sitcom Full House. And decades later, she played Stephanie Turner on the 2020 sitcom Fuller House. So now she's making these kind of Hallmark style movies, and she's upset because one of these movies got sold to this great American family network, and she's apologizing to the LGBTQ ABCDFG community. And she says this: I was very surprised to learn by reading about it in the press yesterday that the independent film I worked on over a year ago was sold to Great American Family. And her press team released this statement out. By the way, she didn't release it. It was her press team that released it out. She goes, quote, "I'm disappointed, but I'm keeping with my mission of supporting the LGBTQ family. Any potential or future money made from this sale will be donated to the LGBTQ organizations." So the network poached Sweeten's TV sister. Her name is Candace Cameron Burr, and she was on Hallmark movies and stuff like that. So they poached her from Hallmark, and the CEO of the Great American Family Network, after they got Candace, came out and said, "Hey, we're keeping traditional marriage at the core of our film, at the core of our network." And critics like Sweeten believe that traditional marriage and family values are anti-LGBTQ for some reason, and I just don't get that. I don't get it. And it's tyranny. It's the minority. It's tyranny of the minority, like Vivek Ramaswamy was saying. And it's divisive, and it's sick to sit there and assume that gay people don't enjoy Hallmark style movies, that gay people are against straight people. I think that we all like these corny movies. These are Hallmark style movies. I think we all like the same interchangeable characters. The changing of really just the name of the small town that the girl moves to, and she meets this farm boy, and they fall in love and they get married. And, I like those movies. Now, if you took 5 gay people and 5 straight people, you put them in a focus group, I guarantee you 9 out of 10 of them probably wouldn't even really remember who was marrying who, or they really don't care about who was marrying who in the movie. And I think we could all agree that those movies are just a little lazy, right? It's the same storyline over and over again, but people love them. I love them. It's a lot of mush. A lot of the time, it's the same storyline, and they're kind of lazy, but I like them. They're hardly on the same level as Disney, seeing how woke they can go before getting broke. Disney sucks. I'll be honest with you. The Hallmark movies are far better. My favorite one, Hitched for the Holidays. But poor Jodie Sweetin. I mean, it's got to be really sad to be you, uh, to be this upset that your movie got sold to a network that what? They don't create stories about gay couples? Who cares? They create stories about straight couples. I don't think gay people are against that. And it's divisive, it's wrong, and she's just so desperate to signal her virtue here. And good for you, Great American Family, because in my book, that proves to me that you're an awesome network. And if you can get this actress to feel that desperate to signal her virtue, means you're over the target. I'm going to be back here on the Morning Buzz. We got about 30 minutes of show left. One thing I did want to get to, this Australian woman, she's out there saying there's too many American flags. Too many of them. I hate the American flags. And it's like, do you know what happened in your country during the pandemic? I'm going to remind her here on the Morning Buzz. She's gone viral because she hates American flags. She's living in America and she is uncomfortable by the amount of American flags we have here. So we'll be back on the Morning Buzz. Plus, I'm going to run through what David Shostokis said this morning about the indictment of this Illinois pastor alongside Donald Trump. And David Shostokis revealed a couple of things. Number one, David Shostokis has already beat Fannie Willis. Sorry, Fulton County DA, but you better buckle up because David Shostokis is coming for you again. I'll be back. Probably not. So the movie she's crying about that probably got sold to the Great American Family Network. It probably is a traditional movie because I would have a hard time believing that they would buy something that had a gay couple in it, Great American Family. So most likely the movie is about a traditional marriage and it probably has a Hallmark style feel to it. And we all know the Hallmark story, right? The woman falls in love with the man and she leaves her big time corporate job and she falls in love and she gets married to the man in a lot of times these movies and a lot of people like those corny movies. Okay, gay people do too. um, that's the thing about it. So I'd imagine that she doesn't play a gay character in it if it was sold to Great American Family. And really, if she wants to apologize, she should probably apologize to the LGBTQ community that she even did a film where there wasn't a gay character, right? Instead of apologizing for the film being sold to a network that doesn't promote gay couples. Uh, so is she a hypocrite? Yeah, I would say that she's a hypocrite. She probably should apologize for the fact that she's not playing a gay character in this film that she did and was eventually sold to Great American Family. The film probably doesn't have a gay character in it. Otherwise, I would imagine that Great American Family wouldn't have bought it. RT, yes, we're gonna get to this girl. You're gonna be livid. I was shaking at this girl because I'm like, what? How could she possibly? I mean, say these things as an American? Like we allow like go back to the country you want to be in. That because I'll tell you right now, the reason why we fly our American flag so proudly is because we have freedom. And we want to remind others and ourselves of that freedom and how great America is. That's why I fly the American flag. People died for our freedom, and it serves as a reminder that freedom isn't free. It requires blood. That's just the way it goes. Even our spiritual freedom, right, in Jesus Christ. I am wearing my rooted shirt today. Pray. You can get your pray shirt today. The link is in the description. It's Rooted Apparel. They're based in Bloomington. They're a really cool company, and they are all about, hey, let's get affordable shirts out there that spark up conversations that you can have with somebody about the gospel and spiritual freedom. That's what I was talking about. That was paid for by the blood and body of Jesus Christ. He was nailed up there on the cross. So freedom is not free. It's never free. We know that if you have spiritual freedom, you know that your spiritual freedom comes from Jesus Christ. Your freedom from sin comes from Jesus Christ and the debt that he paid with his life. Freedom isn't free. Our national freedom isn't free because people served this country of ours and died in wars to obtain that freedom. The American Revolution, right? 1776. I don't think I really have to go into all of that, but that's why we fly the American flag. I don't need to go into all of that because if you're an American, you know why you fly the American flag. This girl doesn't get it. And I think she needs to be reminded that during the pandemic in Australia, how bad things were. And I did not realize how bad things were in Australia until I was reminded in 2023. I kind of forget a lot of these news stories that happen in COVID times. But what was going on in Australia was sad. And I'm going to get to these here coming up in just a bit. What was going on back then. And if she wants to go back, good, then she can go back. I will be back here. We are also going to be chatting a little bit about this new poll. Ron DeSantis, irrelevant Ron, he is falling behind Chris Christie in New Hampshire. Yes, you heard that correctly. He's falling behind Chris Christie, Ron DeSantis. And I've been telling you this morning that there is no Republican Party without Donald Trump. If you look at Mitt Romney and Obama, if you look at that election and look at the numbers, Obama was almost going to win Missouri. Like he almost won Missouri. The Republican Party without Donald Trump would have dissipated and it would have become a regional party. It would have become maybe a Southern party of some kind, not a national party. With Donald Trump, we have gotten back a lot of these middle American voters, a lot of these blue collar voters back. And without Donald, I think that there will no longer be a Republican Party. So it's important that Donald gets in. And to answer the question of Ezekiel, what's plan B? There is no plan B. Okay. Donald has to get in to save not only the Republican Party, but to save America from things like World War III. I'll be back. Hold on. Judy on the stream, YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Twitter. She says this, why is she still here? Go home to Australia and don't be burdened by the American flag. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. You can see me live in studio. I'm on Facebook, Rumble, Twitter, and YouTube. Subscribe to my channel. That's Kat Peterson 929. You can also text in, be a part of the show like Judy. And that number is 309-451-9299. So yeah, I was talking about Koala Karen. Her name really doesn't matter. So for today, we're just going to call her Koala Karen. And she's hardly the first leftist dingbat to whine about the American flag. This is virtue signaling, progressivism 101. But coming from Australia, I think she needs a reminder and I'm going to have to give her that reminder of just how sucky Australia is. Let's take a listen.
I'm just going to say it. There are too many American flags. Like they're on houses, they're on cars, some of them on couch cushions. Like, I don't know who's making these American flags, but they'd be making a bloody fortune. And like, you're the only country that I know that does this. Like, the only time I think I've ever seen an Australian flag is like on the Harbour Bridge. Could not tell you what it looks like. Like, I know it's like blue and it's got some stars on it. But I think I could draw the American flag from memory. Like, I think I could make a bloody sculpture out of it. That's how many times I've seen it. It's enough. Let's pull back on it, okay? Let's stay humble.
I can't stand it. So, Karen Koala. Koala Karen. Australia, and she needs a reminder, folks. I got to be this reminder for her. I know. She needs a reminder. Australia was the first country to unveil their plans for what's called a Freedom Pass. Now, the Freedom Pass is an app that the Aussies had to download. They had to download this app onto their phones to prove that they were vaccinated, that they got the jab, so they could do, well, anything. They couldn't do anything if they didn't have this Freedom Pass, i.e., this app that proved that they were vaccinated. To quote the Australian government at the time, if you want your life to continue close to normal, get your jab. No vax means no Freedom Pass. In the name of public health, Australia said you can't exercise and you have to be in complete isolation. Don't go outside. And unless, of course, we, the government, give you permission, then it's okay. People weren't allowed to go visit one another. You had to get permission to go visit somebody. You had to register with the state to go visit somebody during these lockdowns. The Australian Army was called in to enforce these health orders alongside the police force that was going door to door. Hey, we're here. Are you complying with the government mandates? That's what the Australian police was doing. And then they brought in the Australian Army to supplement that police force. Then there was a video, I saw it, this video of a woman. She was being thrown into a quarantine facility. That's what I'll call it, a quarantine camp, because her friend tested positive for COVID. Mind you, this person did not test positive. This woman didn't test positive. She was thrown into the quarantine facility anyway because her friend tested positive, and the police showed up at her house, knocking on her door, dragging her away to the quarantine camp. And here's my favorite one. You ready? Australia public health chief gleefully referring to these lockdowns as being part of, and I quote, the new world order. So yeah, Koala Karen, you can take your Australian whining about her flag, and she can just take all that whining, roll it up, stick it up your nose. I don't care what you say about the American flag. I'm going to fly it. I like RT saying this in the comments on YouTube. Our family has flown a flag outside for over 50 years. Freedom is never free. Somebody always has to pay a price. Why doesn't she move her butt back to Australia? Yeah, she needs to move back to Australia. If you don't like it, then go ahead, move back and go download your Freedom Pass. Okay. And I like the freedom isn't free part. You know, it's not free. 1776, the American Revolution, our freedom, our national freedom was paid for in blood. And the American flag serves as a reminder of that, just like the cross serves as a reminder that we have spiritual freedom. And our spiritual freedom was paid for. We are free from sin due to the blood of Christ, the body of Christ, Christ being nailed up on a cross as a sacrifice. So freedom is never free. And the flag serves as a reminder that we have our national freedom. We get to go outside and we don't have to register with the state to visit people. Right? Things were bad in America, but they weren't that bad. And they weren't as bad as Australia, but it's coming. It's coming. So in the 6 o'clock hour, I want to run through this really quick before I take the break. David Shostokis visited with me, and this whole show, I've been asking the question of Fani Willis. I want to ask her the question, what did they promise you in exchange for doing this? Did they promise you a seat on the Georgia Supreme Court? Look at Kim Gardner. Look her up. Kim Gardner. She was the last one they tried to pull all this stuff with. And they got what they could out of Kim Gardner. She got some indictments out of on Eric Greitens, the then governor. She got some indictments on the McCluskeys. Investigation after investigation. Eventually, Kim Gardner, she hit a brick wall, and that was reality. And now she had to resign as a DA. She had her license revoked, and she's in nursing school, so she's doing her life over. And Fani Willis, I'm going to ask you, is it worth it? What you're doing, is it worth it? to go after political opposition like this. So David Shostokis, he's representing a fellow. His name is Stephen Lee, and he's an Illinois pastor and a former police chaplain. And he's being charged in connection with efforts to intimidate Georgia election workers, which is really kind of funny because, I mean, there's video of him in a car outside of Ruby Freeman's house. He knocked on the Freeman's door and then he knocked on the neighbor's door. Those things are not criminal acts. Okay, they're trying to say that he was in violation of the RICO Act. The RICO Act says that if you are in violation of the RICO Act, what you have to do is 2 criminal acts that further a criminal enterprise or further the conspiracy to overturn the 2020 election in this case. They're saying he is in violation of the RICO Act. But what's funny is in the indictment itself, they refer to Stephen Lee, the Illinois pastor, his acts of knocking on the door, calling up. I think he made 1 phone call and he knocked on a couple of doors. Okay. They said that these were overt actions, not criminal. So even in their own indictment, they screwed up and they said that these are overt actions that he took that caused him to be in violation of the RICO Act. But you can't be in violation of the RICO Act if they're not criminal acts, because the RICO Act says you have to have 2 criminal acts and that further the criminal enterprise in order to be in violation of the RICO Act. So David Shostokis probably going to win that case. I would hope so. We're praying that he wins. He's representing that Illinois pastor. Stephen Lee is his name, who's been indicted alongside Donald Trump and 18 others, or 17 others. 18 people, I think, in total. And he's already beaten Fani Willis, David Shostokis, because an Illinois judge found that they were trying to do illegal stuff and not comply with Illinois law when it came to extraditing or like getting the pastor to come down to Fulton County to testify before the special grand jury or a special grand jury. So Fanny was already like beaten by David Shostokis. So I'd imagine he's going to beat her again. I'll be back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. It's a damn shame that these prosecutors can't be prosecuted for filing bogus claims. Yes. Yeah. So I'm telling you, these overt acts, that is not in violation of the RICO Act. I hope that I'm making myself clear there when I say that Stephen Lee had to perform some sort of criminal act. And in the indictment itself, it acknowledges his acts as overt actions. He can't be in violation of the RICO Act if they weren't criminal acts. So Hawaii, this is bizarre. The governor is now saying that the state is looking to acquire the land that was destroyed by the fires. And I'm just going to say this, folks, on the Morning Buzz. You can see me live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Be sure to smash that like button if you're watching on the stream. I'm going to say this. Something doesn't add up. That's all I'm going to say. Something doesn't add up because the power company, Hawaiian Energy, they make up like 95% of the energy. They produce 95% of the energy and power 95% of the homes there on the island of Maui, right? And they were told very clearly, hey, stop the power, stop the flow of power through these lines. We're getting a lot of high winds, dangerous conditions. There's a high risk of wildfires if you do not cut the power to these lines. So there's all kinds of lawsuits against this company now because they didn't shut off the power when they were supposed to during this hurricane. It's hurricane season. And the power lines, they fell. It caught some brush on fire, and the wind carried that fire across the island. The wind from the hurricane. And probably, of course, they don't do controlled burns in Hawaii. It's a Democrat-run state. And for some odd reason, Democrats aren't true environmentalists and they don't believe in controlled burns and they think that they're bad for the environment and CO2 in the air. But controlled burns actually prevent things like wildfires happening. I'd be curious if what their ordinances are and what their laws are surrounding controlled burns and if they've had one. But now we've got the Hawaiian governor, Josh Green, announcing that his administration wants to acquire all of these private properties in this town that have been destroyed by these wildfires. And he's vowed to prevent any foreign buyers from swooping in to exploit the tragedy, suggesting the state was better suited to take control of the land. I don't like it. I don't like it. That's all I'm going to say about it. I don't like that at all. And one thing that you need to know about this is that those Americans on that island are only getting a measly $700 per household. Meanwhile, we sent just recently $20 million to the 51st state of the United States, Ukraine. Just kidding. They're not a 51st state. It's an Eastern European nation. We sent 200 million just this past Monday, 113 billion over the course of Joe Biden's residency in the White House. And if you do the math, it's $2,500 per person has been given to individuals in Ukraine. In comparison, per household, $700. And when you total up the $700 per household, it totals out to like $1.9 million. So that's all Joe Biden has given those people. I do have to go. I mean, the show is over. You can catch it again tomorrow morning, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. That's the Morning Buzz. Find me on Facebook. You can also go to cities929.com. Coming up after me, it's, of course, Glenn Beck. Love him. Then Dan Bongino, Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, and Markley Van Camp and Robbins.